Witam bardzo serdecznie w nowym odcinku podcastu Pięknie, powiedziane. Wita się Aleksandra Bilicka. Dzisiaj ze mną gość nietypowy. Będziecie Państwo mieli możliwość posłuchania innego języka niż polskiego. Ze mną Aleksander Adams. Welcome.
Thank you.
Brytyjski artysta, poeta, krytyk sztuki, komentator kultury. Nasz gość dzisiaj jest u nas, ponieważ jego prace znajdują się na wystawie w Muzeum Archidiecezji Warszawskiej pod tytułem Od ruin do odkupienia. Wystawa została otwarta 20 września, podziwiać ją można do 2 lutego, także serdecznie zapraszamy. What are the inspiration behind your artistic work? Because you do not only paintings, but all variety of works and artistic on different artistic grounds. And what inspires you?
Well, I think a lot of the time that I'm inspired by history or by experiences that I have when I'm traveling or when I'm reacting to the art that I love. And sometimes the best way of thinking about or reacting to something that excites you is to make art. I think that in order to understand my own thinking, to explore my own ideas, I need to make work. It's not something that you can sit down and go away and think about. Sometimes you surprise yourself by making some art that is quite unexpected and exciting, and sometimes it opens unexpected areas or makes peculiar connections, and that's the most exciting kind of response to art that excites me.
Mm-hmm. And why are you choosing topics like religion? Because I saw the painting Lamentation, and Ruins of Warsaw also is interesting topic because well, you have no or you have any connection with Poland. That why does this topic interests you?
Well, I lived for 7 years in Berlin, and before I arrived in Berlin, I had already done lots of paintings of Berlin in ruins after the Second World War. And so it was fascinating to live in that environment, surrounded by some of those buildings, most of which have been destroyed or rebuilt so that you can't see the damage. But there are a few places in Berlin where you can see, especially around Museums Insel, the Alte National Gallery, there are still the bullet marks in the walls, in the columns. And I know that in the one of the museums there, they have preserved some of the war damage. And this was always very interesting for me because I had only experienced it in photographs and now I was actually living amongst it. I only visited Warsaw for the first time last year. I came to deliver a speech and I was really struck by the way that Warsaw had been so comprehensively rebuilt because, of course, it had been sort of terribly destroyed during the end of the war. And it got me interested to start looking at photographs of those ruins, and I started painting Warsaw as well. And that really, I connected that with the idea of religion and redemption and revival. So naturally there was a complicated response to the war in Poland, you know, because of the communist situation. Did you rebuild? How patriotic could you be? This was a difficult question for the Poles and also for the Germans. As a British person, we didn't have the same dilemmas, so it was interesting for me to examine what the Poles did, and part of my thinking was just simply to spend more time looking at the ruins. The interesting thing about painting ruins is that you're painting something that's figurative and descriptive, but also because of the destruction, because of the marks, it's also abstract. So you get to paint an abstract picture and a figurative picture at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And why the religious paintings? Why this thing that's I'm asking myself also, the connection between the ruins and the religious topics.
Well, I know that many people in times of suffering and national suffering and personal suffering, they turn to religion. And I know that in Poland this was a difficult subject because of the communists' atheism. And I know that in Poland the Catholic Church is very strong and people have a strong faith in general. And I wanted to think about the idea of redemption, about rebirth, and how that can be done through thinking about religious terms, about the death and the rebirth of Christ. And so I looked at a lot of religious art made recently, and it didn't excite me. It didn't strike me as appropriate or accurate. Not that I'm criticizing these people, it didn't seem that suitable for me. So when I wanted to paint religious pictures, what I did was I found a group of studio photographs taken by 19th century artists. So this was 150 years ago, and they would pose their models in the studio holding props, but of course these were just cheap props, so they didn't have a spear, so they would hold a broom. They didn't have a sword, so they would just hold a brush or something. And they didn't have blocks of stone, so they would have one foot on a stack of books. And even so, I was quite touched and moved by these displays where people were acting out the life of Christ and Mary and other figures from the biblical stories. And I wanted to paint them as they were in the original photographs. That seemed very rich and honest, and it also allowed people space to consider Christian stories in a new light.
So you can say that you completed the work from the
150
years ago.
In a way, because I know that when they were originally used, the painters used to paint all that out, and they would change the bed sheets that the models were wearing into sort of togas or grand gowns or something. But I wanted to keep it as it was in the original, and that to me seemed more poignant, more moving, that you had just the very, very simple clothes, the very simple chairs and walls that were unpainted and so forth. And to keep it very simple, I thought was more exciting and more real for me.
Mm-hmm. And about the exhibition, why did you choose these particular works to showcase, and what's the, let's say, message behind all the exhibition?
Well, I wanted to show a combination. So in the exhibition we have a selection of works that are some ruins. So we have 2 paintings of Warsaw, one of Dresden, and there are also paintings of religious subjects. So these are Christian, but also we have 2 images of Eve before the fall, before sin, and then after sin. And then there are also a series of drawings of iconoclasm. Because if you're interested in art and history and religion, you see very often religious art that has been defaced. So this might have been defaced during war or during the Protestant Reformation or by the communists. And this seems to me very powerful. The act of defacing is very powerful. It's an assault against not only the material, it's also an assault against the religion and the beliefs, and an assault upon the people who believe in that icon. So when you deface the icon, you are also attacking the people who believe in it. But it is a strange recognition of the power of the icon. If you didn't think that something was powerful, you wouldn't spend any time thinking about it or looking at it. So in a way, the atheists or the revolutionaries are actually saying, these are really powerful images, we must remove them, we must damage them. And so the combination of all of these subjects together, I think, makes a very fitting exhibition, especially here for Poland, for Warsaw, and especially for the Museum of the Archdiocese of Warsaw. So, of course, if you go to the museum, you'll see lots of religious art, you'll see paintings of various bishops, you'll see lots of crucifixes, and some of these have been damaged. And so my art seems to fit in very well. And it's a beautiful thing that this space is so close to the religious art in the museum's permanent collection. So you can actually look from the crucifixes and the portraits through into the space where my exhibition is and see my religious art and my ruin paintings.
It's also located just beside the church, which was destroyed completely, no? So it's also metaphoric.
Yes, and I actually have a painting of the cathedral in ruins that is in the exhibition, so people can see that if they visit. And that painting is now in the collection of the museum, so that will be staying in Warsaw permanently. So that's a great ending to the story, I think.
Yes. And if you could pick one painting from this exhibition to explain the symbolism behind it, and why do you like it, and what emotions you wanted to bring with this painting?
I think my choice would be the image which is on the main poster. That is of Saint John the Baptist being beheaded. Now, it sounds like quite a dramatic, bloodthirsty subject, but actually, of course, this is posed in the studio in Paris in sort of 1870 or something. So when you look at it, it is a young model, and in one hand he has a knife, and in the other hand he's sort of holding up his hand. His raised hand is very blurred, so you can't see what he's holding. Now, in the painting, of course, that would have resulted at that time, you would have seen him holding up the head of St. John. Actually, I think his hand is empty in the photograph. And at the feet of this model is another model, and he's lying down on the floor, and you can see that he wasn't quite still, so he's raised up his leg a little bit, and it's these touching imperfections which I think remind you about the daily life of an artist's model. So these would be labourers, they would be manual workers, and then they would just come in for a few francs in one day, and they would be drawn and painted by artists. And we have a connection between these two models and an artist who photographed them. And this illustrates the story of St. John the Baptist. And it's a very mysterious image where you see the back of the model standing up with a knife in his hand, and you can't quite understand what's going on. But once you think about it, it becomes clear. And for me, it's a very dramatic, bold, heroic subject. But it's painted with a little bit of humour, and there is a touching human element to it.
Because it's mostly, this scene is mostly painted with the head on a plate, no? So it's like...
Yeah, this is a much more...
delicate.
Much more delicate. Of course, there's no blood. People, if they visit, they will be a little bit surprised, of course, because it's all in black and white. So the paintings are in black and white, the drawings are in black and white. I don't use colour very much. I use it sometimes.
And why is that?
Well, when I started out, I was a little bit of a conceptual painter. I went to Goldsmiths College, which is an art college, or it had an art course, and it's in the centre of London, and it was very contemporary, very conceptual, very anti-painting. And so when I started painting, I had a very strong attitude that I was going to do something that was very modern. So I would paint like Pablo Picasso or Gerhard Richter, and I would just use black and white paint, and I wouldn't do anything that was naturalistic or realistic. And so this was quite a hard position to take. And then I got used to it. I got excited by it. But I also got locked into a way of thinking. And I think now I've started to work a bit more with colour, and I've become a bit more playful. I think in the last couple of years, since I moved to the north of England and I got married, and I thought very hard about what I wanted to do with my life and what I wanted to do in my career, I thought, well, I should be more experimental, I should be more playful, I should be able to get back to the things that really excited me about art when I started. And that includes working with colour, working in different formats, making lots of pictures that maybe are too strange or too odd or too unfinished to ever be exhibited. But that's the stuff that really excites me, and I want to do more of that.
So we have a glimpse of a future in here.
Yes.
We will see more of color.
Well, yes, that I will be working more in colour. There is actually a painting in the exhibition that I made especially for the exhibition, which includes some gold paint. Yes, I'm going to be doing some more work soon, and there is discussion about me having another exhibition in Poland next year. So perhaps if that happens, I can come back and talk to you then.
Great. So we'll see you then in here. I hope so. Thank you so much for all the explanation and for sharing your interests, your artistic motivations. Thank you so much for being here, and i zapraszamy wszystkich do odwiedzenia Muzeum Archidiecezji Warszawskiej od 20 września do 2 lutego. Wystawa Od ruin do odkupienia. Tam możecie zobaczyć obrazy, o których była mowa. Zapraszamy też oczywiście do odwiedzania wystawy stałej, o której również była mowa. Dziękuję jeszcze raz i do zobaczenia.